They're already popping bait. There we go, got one. There's no way this is a bass, and if it is, it's a giant. What? I don't have a net. What do I do? I got like a 40-inch musky on. It's on 12-pound test with a crankbait. I have no idea what to do. Yeah, this is gonna be a minute. I have no idea what I'm gonna do here. My net's at my house. I can't even move him. He's not 40 inches, but he's huge. I didn't even know there were muskie here. That's crazy. Let's see if we can land him. He's not gonna like this. That's awesome. Look at that muskie. I caught him on 12-pound test. Welcome back to the channel, guys. Today we're gonna be doing a smallmouth video, but we just caught a monster muskie doing what we're gonna be doing for smallmouth here. We're gonna be talking about my river fishing secret, one I haven't wanted to give up. We're gonna get this guy back in the water before he dies. What a magnificent fish there. But it works on muskies too, apparently. But we're gonna show you how to catch a ton of fish fishing rivers, how it makes it very predictable. This was literally my second cast on this spot, and I'm sure we're gonna catch some smallmouth too. So let's get him back in the lake real fast. All right, so first off, that muskie fish catch was awesome. I could not believe I caught that thing on not only a little Crush 25X crankbait from 6 cents, but also 12-pound test line, and did not break off. I mean, that thing was choked all the way down its gullet. It was pretty cool to actually catch that thing. But before we head back out on the water and actually catch some smallmouth doing what we're going to be talking about today, let's break down a little bit of why this technique works, how to find these fish in these areas, and then we'll talk more about like bait selection and all that kind of stuff out there on the water itself. Basically, what we're going to be talking about today is targeting creek mouth areas in rivers, or even creek mouths of other creeks. If you fish a creek and it has a tiny little tributary coming in, that's fresh water, and that's huge in creeks, especially in the fall. Early fall, when that water is the hottest it's going to be, what will happen is you'll have weather events that start to happen and the nights will get cool. So like last night, it was only 45, 48 degrees. And today it's only 67 outside. That water is still above 70. I was out fishing yesterday, the water's still 73 degrees, but the air temperature is colder than the water finally. And what will start to happen is the coldest water will actually either become the surface, which is when turnover happens and those fish will start to move shallow. That will trigger some of it. But also what happens is the creeks that feed the rivers, they cool off faster because the water depth is only this deep. So overnight, that temp will drop in that cool water or that creek, and that cool water will be feeding into the river. So they're looking for the coolest water they can find. That will be the coolest water and the most oxygenated water, and the bait will flood there. And when the bait floods there, so will the bass, and everything will live at the mouths of these creeks, muskie included. It's just a heavy ecosystem in the early fall, and everything lives there. Everything that wants to be in the water will want to live in those areas, and there will be big schools of fish, and it will be so easy to catch them. So let's head out on the water. We'll break down how to fish one of these areas, what bait you should be using, everything like that, and hopefully we'll catch us some more fish along the way. First off, let's talk about what these areas are and how to approach them. So the area that we're talking about is going to be feeder creeks or creek mouths or anything like that. There's a few things that these feeder creeks offer. So right here in front of us, we have a feeder creek, and if you just noticed that, there's fish literally chasing bait up there, so I have no doubt we're about to get bit here. Look at that, they're literally busting on bait right there. There's current coming in up there. Like that creek is literally pouring water out. What that does is it gives numerous things in this area for these fish to have. So one, you're gonna have cooler, more oxygenated water. It's always gonna work that way. Those creeks, when it gets in the 50s at night, they're gonna pump in cooler water just because it's shallower and it doesn't hold heat as well. So when it gets cold at night, like we have in this early fall time right now, those creeks are gonna put colder water in, so the coldest water in the river is gonna be where we're casting right now, and that's what those fish are gonna be looking for. 2, the other thing you're gonna have is more oxygen because you have the turbulence of that actually pushing water or aerating it as it comes over the rocks and tumbles down the stream and then flows into the river, as opposed to some stagnant water out here. So that's what they're gonna be looking for up there. And oftentimes when you have those two things together, you're gonna have bait as well, which we do have bait all piled in here. So you have an all-you-can-eat buffet with colder, more oxygenated water. It's basically call your shot fishing. There's no doubt that there's gonna be fish here. Once you find a spot like this, it's just a matter of figuring out 1, what they wanna bite, and 2, where they're sitting on these places. So while it is a creek and they are gonna sit in that current, they're still gonna use a current break. So up on this one right here, we actually have a sandbar, so the current comes off and that current's gonna flow over that sandbar, and there's gonna be a big hole in the water underneath that those fish are just sitting in. So there's a big depression right out the mouth of this creek here, and that's right where they're sitting. So we have the other thing, like we talked about, bait selection. We have a ton of baits up here on the front deck, and we'll rotate through all of them to try and figure out what they're gonna bite. This is one of my favorites here. I did not talk about that in the actual bait selection. This is a jackal riser. If you want to see me do a video on it, leave a comment down below. I can make a video on that. But this is a very unique bait for when they're chasing these tiny little bait fish. And we'll see if we can get one to bite this. But oftentimes when I start approaching one of these creek mouths, the first thing I'm gonna do is throw search baits. So I'm sitting way back out off this creek mouth, and I'm gonna throw baits up here that I can work very quickly and cover water and see where these fish are sitting up there in these creek mouths. Then once I locate where they're at, then I'll try different baits to try and get them to bite, or try and catch more fish if I can only catch a couple on the search bait. So right now we're gonna throw this jackal riser around, we're gonna throw a square bill around, we're gonna throw maybe a swim bait or a fluke, all different kinds of baits that can imitate bait fish. We're gonna try that first, and then if we don't get any bites, we have a drop shot and a tube we'll fire up in there too and see if we can get us a couple on that as well. So we're gonna search around with this first and see what happens. Usually I'll fan cast around the area for 10 or 15 casts, and if I don't get a bite, especially when they're actively chasing bait like they are right now, I'll switch up my bait and try something else, because a lot of times they're gonna bite this immediately if you present the right bait in there. So we'll switch to something else here. We're gonna throw this pulse fish head with this little fluke on here and see if we can get us a couple to bite on this. Basically imitating those little tiny bait fish that they're eating up there, and see if we can get one to react to that. And then we'll just try another bait, and we'll just keep cycling through until we figure them out. So I've been watching these fish absolutely crush bait fish up here, and they're not touching any of my bait fish oriented moving baits. So we're gonna try a tube, and we're gonna throw that up there. While it can imitate bait fish, mostly it's gonna imitate crawfish and other types of stuff like that. And we're gonna see if maybe we can trick one into biting this, thinking it's a crawfish, because there's not an abundance of crawfish up here that these fish are feeding on. There is abundance of tiny little bait fish up here, so you really have to match the hatch with your bait, or you're not gonna trick these fish, just because they have unlimited real ones to choose from up there. So we're gonna try a slower moving bait and see if that works. If you have a different creek mouth where either your fish are feeding on crawfish regularly, or you just don't have this abundance of bait fish, you can just go with a tube or other bottom bouncing bait from the start, and sometimes you'll catch a lot of fish that way too. That's why I like to have both. It really depends on the scenario and situation on which bait I'm gonna throw. There we go. Got one up there on the tube. See if we can get him in here. Looks like a nice fish. Not giant, typical river fish. But we fished all around here. They're chasing tons of bait. Couldn't get them to bite anything. We switched up to the tube and we were able to get one to commit to that. So maybe we'll throw this around a little bit more and see if we can get us another one. Like I said, not a giant, but in the Pittsburgh rivers, that's a good fish. That would be a good little keeper to put in your bag down here at the Pittsburgh rivers. And like I said, we fished all around here. We threw a crankbait, we threw a fluke, we threw a swim bait. We threw that jackal riser. We had 0 bites. I fire that tube right up there and I get bit immediately. So not a bad one. We're gonna get back to fishing and show you more about how we wanna fish the area now that we caught a fish, what we wanna do next. All right, so since we just caught that fish on a tube, I will immediately continue to fish the tube through the area, but I'll also cast exactly back in the same spot. So we'll fire one way back up there right where we just caught that fish. A lot of times when you're fishing current related fish, they will live on the I thought I had one, I had the rock. They will live on the exact same piece of cover together up there, or the same area. So a lot of times if you catch one, there's gonna be more in that area. The joys of river fishing. We lost that too, but we'll get another one on here. We'll get right back in there. But like I was saying, those fish will live on the exact same spot. So a lot of times if you catch one there, you can catch more there. Even if it's not immediate, notice that area, like take note of that area. There's a little point right there and a dip from where the current comes out. And I will continue to cast in there other baits a time later, come back hours from now and throw in the same spot. A lot of times they'll reset in those same areas. So let's get another tube and see if we can get back in there. All right, so now that we've taken like 20, 30 casts with that tube and we have not had another bite, now is when I'm gonna change up my baits. I'm gonna go back to the moving baits and I'm gonna move around the area now. I've covered it thoroughly. We know that we're not getting any more bites. Now I'm gonna start moving around the area and pulling my bait from different angles. It's very important when you're fishing in river situations. The current will set these fish up a certain way, and literally if I cast a crankbait this way, I might get no bites, but if I pull it from that angle, I might catch 10 fish in a row. It all depends on which way your bait is moving and getting it in the right area, because they react to the current that way, and that's how they expect the bait to react and act in the water. So we're gonna go ahead and take a little stroll through the area here, throw in this crankbait, and see if we can get us another one to bite. There we go. And it's a good one. And you can see that fish was in a similar area as the first one. It was kind of set up in the same spot, but he was back off the shelf a little, and we'll show you here once we get this one in the boat. And we also switched up to the crankbait and we're able to get a bigger fish. Not a huge one, but for the Pittsburgh rivers, that's a good one. All right, so we got that one right there. You can see he was right on that shelf over there. Same spot, we just moved areas, changed direction, changed bait profile. They started biting the crankbait a little bit better, and we got us another fish. And we can keep rotating that through this area, or we can go find another creek mouth over there or over there, wherever. You can repeat this over and over and over again on your body of water. You'll catch a ton of fish doing so. It works every single time in the rivers. All summer, late fall, all the way summer to like fall is really when this bite shines. We're early fall, mid-September right now, and it is prime time. So I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. If you want to see some other baits you should be throwing at this type of cover, or if you fish creeks a lot, these are some baits you should be throwing in rivers and creeks just like this. Hit that subscribe button down below so you don't miss any more of my fishing videos coming up. Thanks for watching.